Oh, okay, cool. Thanks, I appreciate
All
that.
right.
I was about to ask you if you mind if I take notes, but
This will
I,
be
I,
easier. This way you can play it back anytime you want.
yes, sir.
Fast forward or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, on this 1020 locator chart, it's supposed to be on the last page of your report here, and this is what it looks like. So it just helps you identify these areas. So when we're talking about that in the analysis, so like here where we've got O1, O2, F7, FP2 talks about what's going on in those parts of the brain, you can relate it back to this chart and find out where those things are if you want to know.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So the uh, the first thing that we do in processing all of this is we go in and we select these red lines down here, the various epics that we're going to use. We eliminate things like eye movement, tongue movement, swallowing, any of the things that we call artifact.
Okay.
And then the computer will give us a reliability rating. So anything over 0.90 is considered to be a good clean record. And then we have to have at least 1 minute of artifact free data in order to make it reliable and valid. So here in the eyes closed condition, we have 0.97 and 1 minute and 41 seconds. Then in the on task, when you were doing that, the intention, we
Hmm.
have 0.98 and 2 minutes and 11 seconds it was used. So we got a good clean recording there. The next thing that we look at is called a Z score uh, report. And so we're going to look at this eyes closed, and then we're going to look at it again when you're in the doing the power of intention. So let me zoom in here and I'll explain what the scale is before I tell you all about it here.
Okay.
So we see a scale here that we're going from -3 to +3, and a Z score lets us measure things like standard deviation. So that's what these numbers are down here. It's standard deviations, or how far away from normal is it. You see here
Okay.
in the center, this green area, this is the normal range. So anything that's green on this report is in the normal range. If it's yellow or orange, it's considered 2 standard deviations above normal. And if it's red, it's 3. The two colors of blue that are available is the light blue at 2 standard deviations below normal, and the dark blue is at 3. Any
Hmm.
questions on the scale before I tell you what all of it means?
No, I'm pretty clear
Okay,
on that. Hmm.
and we'll zoom out a little bit here. Um, so this is your eyes closed, where you're just sitting there taking in information. So we're going to look at different frequency groups. So we're going to look at 1 hertz, 2 hertz, 3 hertz. This group right here. That's what we call delta.
Okay.
And delta is usually dominant in our sleep patterns. The brain is producing all these frequencies all the time. The next group that we're going to look at is called theta 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The next group is alpha 9, 10, 11, and 12. Then 13, 14, and 15. These are your sensory motor rhythms. And then 16 all the way up through 30, that's your cognitive beta activity. So, what I've got down here at the end of your report is I wrote these 12 pages of stuff on understanding brainwaves. You know, what happens in delta, what happens in theta, what happens in alpha, all the way up through gamma. So you can read that, and that'll help you understand what those brainwaves do and why they do them.
Okay.
So as we look at this first group and we see some delta up here, the delta in the front here, have to ask a couple of questions to kind of eliminate a couple of things.
Okay.
One is that when we see frontal delta like this, sometimes that's what we call low frequency, 1 and 2 hertz, high arousal. And what that means is when a person is not getting into their REM sleep. So they can be, instead of being deep in their REM sleep during the third and fourth cycle of sleep, they are a little closer to the awake state. So that means that they might have, busy dreams, tossing and turning, waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning, kind of thing.
Mm.
Would that be predictive of your sleep cycles?
Actually, the strange thing about that is it's not. It's not currently. Now it was in the near recent past, up to maybe about 2 to 3 years ago. I told you I remember I told you that I had spent a total of 9 years in prison,
Yeah.
and so I used to have those wake up and sleep lightly and things of that nature. I mean, I pretty much conditioned myself to do that for obvious reasons. And so, I mean, since I've been home, I haven't really been, you know, been, I
Have you
haven't,
had any
I
head
haven't,
injuries that you're aware of?
yeah, definitely the head injury, but not
All
the
right.
sleep
Well,
issue.
let's take a look and see if this is related to the head injuries at all, because we would have run the head injury discriminant here. Okay. So when we look at the traumatic brain injury discriminant,
Hmm.
it's telling us that it's not significant, but we can see some area here at the location T3 and T5, which is the temporal lobe region. And let's see, there's one F7O. So it's not really affecting that frontal lobe area. So um, even though there is a little bit of residue, and we'll look at that um, T3F5 area, which is located, right here. There's T3 and F5, so it'd be this area right here that may have some relationship to that.
Hmm. All the way back there? Wow.
Yeah, it's right by your left ear and then just behind your left ear.
Hmm.
So it's saying that there's some stuff. So whether that came from something, as a child or later, we can't really determine that. But it's just
Okay.
saying that as looking at your EEG, comparing it to those people who have known head injuries, it's saying that this is not necessarily based on a head injury. So it's probably some genetic factor.
Well, I think I got a pretty, I mean, I got something to offer there. It might shed some light. I'm actually 75% deaf in my left ear.
Okay.
That's not from a head injury. That's from a medical malpractice. When I was like 2 years old, I had a, a variation of spinal meningitis.
Uh huh.
And what I had went to the I was 2 years old. They took me into the emergency room to get operated on or what have you. And by the time that whole ordeal was over, I was deaf in my left ear,
Yeah.
75% deaf.
You see how that light blue is there
Uh-huh.
in 6, 7, and 8 hertz? It's showing that in that region that might be related to that because that's in
Okay.
our language centers and hearing and all of that is right there.
Mm. Okay.
So very interesting. So
Mhm.
back up here at this FP1 and FP2. FP1 is over here on the left side, and FP2 is here, right on your forehead there. Uh, FP1 deals a lot with the our ability to understand other people's body language and tone of voice, facial expressions, um, and our uh, a lot of cognitive, intuitive thoughts. So this is very busy up here, kind of keeping you on guard,
Mm.
basically. And this over here on the right side is FP2. That's the ability to keep our emotions in check and control impulsive behaviors.
Mm.
So it's working overtime there.
Mm. Now, I'm assuming this, but I'm going to ask you just to get a clarification. In the majority of cases, um, the above normal state, could, could that be related to something positive, or would you say that's related to something negative? Usually, when you see something above normal.
Well, that's a really good question. Well, it really depends on your perception or your interpretation of that.
Mm.
So it can be something that's very positive. So, in other words, like this area here, trying to keep your emotions in check. So, if a person had uh, problems with being angry, for example, having this elevated is not such a bad deal because
Okay.
then they're able to contain negative emotions or work with them. So you're going to see a whole different picture because when you get into the meditation, what happens when you get into the meditation part? See, all of that changes there.
Mm. That's the meditative part right there.
Yeah, that's when you were doing that power of intention, grabbing
Mm.
onto your dream and stuff. And I'll explain all of that here in a minute. But
Okay.
you see how that changes dramatically from this. So um, your brain has the ability to alter many of these things depending on what it is that you want.
Mm.
So we'll go over a number of things here as we go through this. The other thing that is interesting about this stuff here, this light blue, is that this is we know this is the gateway to the subconscious and what goes on there. And I'm going to talk more about that when we go to the next report here. But let me go back up here and talk about this area here in 3, 4, and a little bit in 5 hertz. This area here is an area that we call uh, F7. And F7 regulates our working memory. It also deals with our selective and sustained attention. So it's going to decide what we're going to pay attention to and how long we're going to pay attention to it.
That's that little yellow and red spot right there.
That's right.
Okay.
And so, what that really can mean is when you have information coming from your subconscious, that it's in a position to learn from that information.
Mm.
The next thing down here at 11 and 12 hertz, the most dominant is this area right here that we call C4. That's a sensory motor activity that's going on in your brain and just being physically aware of where you are, what's around you, and being in a heightened state of awareness.
Okay.
This area back here at 18 hertz, this is actually the area that most people deal with creative visualization of being able to, visualize what they want and connect to that. Would that make
Mm.
sense to you?
Yes.
All right, let's look at these upper frequencies. And this area right down in here at 22 hertz, see, that's that T5 area we were talking about before, right there. And then we have C3 and P3. So the C3 deals with sensory motor activity, but the P3 deals with how we organize information and self boundaries, and then can also deal with a little bit of mind chatter. So these two frequencies, that's what a lot of that's dealing with. There is self awareness, so that you're aware of, you were sitting up on the stage and you were, had this cap on your head and all this stuff going on and all those people looking at you, and you're
Mm.
just kind of aware of what's happening.
Mhm.
And then down here you get more of that visualization. You think in pictures, don't you?
Actually, I was, I don't know, bro. I believe I do, but not as much as I think I should.
Uh-huh.
Like, 'cause sometimes when I'm trying to visualize, I literally can't bring up a picture of what I'm thinking about.
Okay. Um, and there's a reason for that. And
Okay,
you can read all of this other stuff when I send the report over. And
okay,
the reason for that is um, you would be, as I look at all of this information right here, I would term you as clair sentient. Okay, what that means is that from your subconscious and from the collective conscious, information comes in, and you just kind of know stuff. You don't know how you know it. You just know stuff. You're very
mm-hmm.
intuitive. Would that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So one of the things we know from uh, doing a lot of, hundreds of brain maps with people who are advanced meditators, and I've done a lot of brain maps on people who are psychic, clairvoyant, and very intuitive as well. And 1 hertz seems to be the gateway to that collective conscious. So this is all that dark blue, indicating that it's 3 standard deviations below what would be considered normal. So basically, it's pushing all of that um, delta in that area kind of out of the way. One of the things that delta does for us is it lets us not be concerned about our physical surroundings. So, in that meditation or using that whole brain state um, that you were in, it
Mm-hmm.
begins to allow you to be a lot more intuitive to the things that are happening. So then we get into the theta, which is this 5, 6, and 7 hertz. So that's at 2 standard deviations below normal. So that's allowing that information from our subconscious to combine with information from the field or the collective conscious. And then it has to get into our awareness. And that's what this 9, 10, and a little bit of 11 hertz, predominantly this 10 hertz right here, brings it into our conscious awareness. So then we are aware of everything that's going on here.
Oh, oh. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you bet.
You how I think how long does this take to go from 1 hertz to the 10 hertz? These 10 states. How
Well, they're all
long?
happening simultaneously.
Oh, okay, okay,
The brain is producing all of those frequencies, and I'll show you. Okay, this is your all of that those frequencies and things happening. Okay, so this is your
You
brain.
will no longer hear beeps until someone else joins the conference.
So as we look at this,
gotcha,
this 10 hertz, that's this red that we're seeing coming up in here.
gotcha. Okay.
Okay. And so all of this blue, when it goes bright blue over here, that's what we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing as delta in those regions. And
Delta.
then we
Okay.
see this visualization stuff happening in the back of the brain here, and your creative thinking going on right there.
Mm-hmm. So this is like snapshots of the different frequencies
Yeah,
of
so
it.
here we're looking at just a static picture of that, and
Gotcha.
then this is your brain in actual motion there.
Fascinating.
Now we can also look at things like your um, neuroplasticity. Run this ahead a little bit here. All right. So see all these little lines with the boxes on them. This
Mm-hmm.
is neuroplasticity. This is your brain's ability to generate new neural pathways. Over here on the left, all of these numbers that are moving around, and some of them are colored, and most of them are white. White means that they're in the normal range. And then down here, we're looking at your brain functioning in those different frequency bands. So this first one on the left is delta, and then theta, then alpha, low beta, which is your sensory motor activity, then beta, and high beta.
Mm-hmm.
So here it's being active during that time. So first of all, up here in um, your neuroplasticity, the length of the line determines how much neuroplasticity. The thing we don't want to see are when there are gaps in here, either below the line or above the line. There's one little gap right in here. You see that? And
No.
see where they,
Okay.
you see the pointer there? And you see
Okay.
that gap coming in every now and again. And then
Yeah.
after a few seconds, we'll see some activity above the line. That's when your brain is actually going into a loop there.
Mm.
And
What's a
then
loop?
the rest of it all looks really, really good. So your brain is pretty healthy. It has the ability to generate new neural pathways well into old age. Let me back up here a little bit. I want to show you something else. Um, these colors that we see down here, see this alpha?
Mm-hmm.
This is where it's bringing that stuff into your conscious awareness right here. So that's all that frontal alpha from,
From the subconscious.
yeah, from this here, right here, bringing that all into your awareness. You see how these look like little tiny cubes? Can you see that?
Yep.
Might be a little hard to see, but those are 5 by 5 by 5 millimeter cubes, and it's calculating all of the energy in your brain that makes up the cortex. There's 3,279 of them that make up that cortex, and it's calculating literally hundreds of thousands of vectors. And in a vector, that determines the frequency, the amplitude, the phase, all of the information and characteristics of your brainwave patterns, and then putting that together to show us how your brain is actually functioning in some of this stuff.
Okay.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yes, sir.
All
Yes,
right, so
sir.
let's go back to this and talk a little bit more about what's going on here. So all of your upper frequencies are all well within normal range, look great. Okay, so let's look at what's called coherence. So your coherence is how it processes information. And the top row here, we have delta. Next to it, we have theta and alpha, and we have beta. The bottom row is all beta activity in different frequency bands. Okay, so the two things that we see here, one is this blue, which is what we call a hypocoherence. So it's not processing as efficiently as it could. And this is in that area here that we call F7. And if you remember what we talked about before, F7 regulates our working memory and our selective and sustained attention. So
Ah. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry about that. I think of all right, go ahead.
no, go ahead, make your
No,
comment.
I'm saying I'm laughing because I'm thinking that this means that this is showing that I can't pay attention to things for too long.
Yeah, that's what it says.
My, that's crazy. That's exactly what my problem is too. Well, my issue is too.
Yeah, and then you got this here, all this red, a hypercoherence in the 25 to 30 hertz. You see on your map, the 25 to 30 hertz, it's all normal. Look at that. It's all normal. But it's saying that you've got this hypercoherence. Now, imagine inside your head is like a satellite television system that has 50 stations. All this red would indicate that all of the stations are turned on. It's turned up, the volume's turned up very loud, and there's a little guy with a remote in there going click, 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 changing the channel, and your brain's trying to make sense out of all that. Another
Hmm.
way to look at that would be like, as I'm talking, if all you heard was every third word that I said, your brain would be trying to make sense out of that because it's getting distracted by all this information.
Is that normal?
No.
Okay.
So it just means that you have a very, very busy brain going on here with
Uh-huh.
hypercoherence, and it makes it difficult for you to stay focused on one thing. So you take both of these, an area in blue that is supposed to be doing that, but it's not doing it very efficiently. And then you have all this information that's going on, and your brain trying to make sense out of it.
Yes, definitely.
So when we put your brain on task, see how much different this is down here?
Is this is in the brain state right here?
Yeah. So
Okay.
you have all of this going on. This also indicates standard deviation. How thick the line is
Yes.
determines. So if they're, moderately thick or very thick, it means that the moderate thick is over 2.5 standard deviations. Red is above normal, and then the very thick lines means it's over 3 standard deviations above what would be considered normal. Then we go
Hmm.
down here, you see these are all very thin lines, aren't they?
Yes,
And
sir.
that means it's only 1.5 standard deviations or 1.96, almost 2 standard deviations above normal. So when you go into that whole brain state, that means that it's working more efficiently for you. Let's take a look at that whole brain state here.
Hmm.
So one of the things that we did was in scientific language is we do an independent t-test, and that gives us something called p-value. P-value is what is the probability that this is a chance thing. So we're looking at your eyes closed brain information, and then when you go into that power of intention, into that whole brain state, what we want to find out is, does your brain do anything different when you go into that whole brain state? And so the red here, again, we have the delta, the theta, alpha, and beta. Then the bottom row is all beta. So the red indicates what your brain does when you're just sitting there with your eyes closed. And then it's showing us the difference of what happens when you go into the whole brain state. That's all the blue. Okay. So
Okay.
this one here, your beta activity, so you have a combination of red and blue. So in the whole brain state, if this is the way you are normally, when you engage that whole brain state, it says, oh, in order to make this work efficiently, we're going to fill in this side. So that becomes the dominant pattern, and the two together creates your whole brain state. So what you're looking for is uh, good continuity between left and right hemisphere to pass the information back and forth, and harmony from front to back. And that's what it's giving you when you're in that whole brain state.
Okay. Okay. So so this particular chart right here, the red and the blue lines mean something different from the red and the blue lines in the last one that we just saw.
Exactly. It does, because this is what we call p value. We want to know what is the probability that measuring these two conditions, eyes closed to when you're in the whole brain state, what is the probability that that's chance? Well, the thickness of the line also has something to do with that. That measures the p value. See, most of these are very thick lines here in what we're looking at in the beta. And what
Mm.
that means is there is less than 1% chance that uh, this is a fluke. It's saying it as we measure your eyes closed when you're in that intention state, that they are two real conditions. And so this is the measure we use scientifically to validate that.
Okay.
All right, so let's look at what's called phase lag. Now, you
Mm.
see, um, we have a couple of phase shifts that are going on here. This first phase shift you see in the delta, and this is at that F7 area, isn't it? All down
Mm-hmm.
through here. Well, what a
Right.
phase shift is imagine 100 people walking along the beach just about sunset. And just as the sun gets to the horizon, all 100 people simultaneously turn toward the sun and watch it set. And then as soon as it's done setting, they turn and go back to what they were doing. Well, that's what a phase shift is in the brain. It says, okay, guys, we're going to do something and we're all going to do it together. And that's what's
Mm.
going on here. So you have this phase shift that's happening here, and it is somewhat related to this. Okay. So your coherence is saying, we're going to make this more coherent. So there is a phase shift that goes on and it becomes more coherent. Otherwise, you wouldn't be getting this stuff up here. You wouldn't have a connection to the field. It wouldn't be connecting to your subconscious. I mean, this is after doing hundreds of brain maps on people who were advanced meditators and using that power of intention. This is really good. You know, on a
Mm.
scale of 1 to 10 in how well this is going for you, this is like an 8 or a 9.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and that's a big change. That's a big shift from this.
Yeah. And but that's just sitting there without being in the brain state.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Just sitting there. And then when you connected to your dream, this shows that you're really doing it.
Yeah, and I'm better off in that state than I.
Yeah. That's true. You are.
Okay.
Okay, so we're talking about the phase lag here. Now watch what happens when you go into that whole brain state. See, we see a little bit of a different phase shift going on here. See how just look at delta, for example. This right here, okay? You see a shift there. Now, what's happening in this shift is when you're coming out of that whole brain state, there are two things that have to happen. The one of them is that your physical body has to reconnect to past and present. Otherwise, when you come out of that state, you'll be a little disoriented for a couple of minutes.
Mm. Wait. Okay.
So your phase
Okay.
shifts are working correctly, basically.
Okay.
Then we
Because
look at amplitude. You know, think of amplitude like the volume on a radio.
mm-hmm.
So the red is where the volume is turned up really loud, and blue is where the volume is turned down really low. Okay?
Mm.
So this is what it looks like. You have all this frontal stuff going on in the delta, just a lot of kind of chatter going on. And then you get into that whole brain state, and it changes a lot, doesn't it? In
Mm-hmm.
terms of the front here. See that?
Absolutely.
All this frontal noise just simply disappears.
Mm-hmm. Now, does it the shift, the phase shifts, is that what determines how good or how powerful the brain state will be?
Yeah, it's part of it, but it's the biggest part of it.
Is the biggest part? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So being able to get all of the neuronal substrates to work together, that's what it's actually doing. So you're literally commanding that part of your brain throughout your brain to work together.
Mm.
All right, then we look at a couple of things like this theta alpha ratio. Now, the important thing here is when you're in meditation or in the whole brain state or doing that power of intention, this allows you to maintain concentration. It also activates your sympathetic nervous system, so that you have access to various physical elements of your body, but they're not overly engaged where you're thinking about how sore your elbow is or something like that. The other thing it deals with is our perception of the space-time continuum. And what that means is when you're in that state, uh, well, let me back up. Before you get into that state, there is a
Mhm.
condition called space time, or you want to be in time space. And space time is a linear function, it's how we measure time, that's how we measure the space we're in. That's how we know that today is Monday versus any other day of the week, because it's all measured in a linear sense. But
Space
when you're
time.
in time space, there is no past, present, or future.
Hmm.
So when we work with advanced meditators, when they get into that time space, they can be in a meditation for an hour and it'll feel like 10 minutes.
Okay.
And so what this is indicating here is you have a pretty good command of being able to get in that space-time continuum.
In the space-time continuum.
Yeah, and so what that does is there's not a lot of mind chatter and other things that are going on that will uh, make it difficult for you. So when you start manifesting things or creating things in your world, like getting that dream to become realized, this is one of the things that is very helpful in that process.
The space, this the space-time is the one that's important. Is the
Right,
one that,
right.
and
So
that means that.
this is what Einstein was trying to teach people, understanding about that when there is this theory of relativity, that the space-time continuum, that at a certain point in that continuum, it becomes time space. And there is no past, present, or future. Time is just time, and you are in a space where time does not exist. I know that's pretty deep and heavy, but that's,
No, that's cool with me.
yeah. So this essentially indicates that you have the ability, to create and have things manifest in your world, and that's what that really means. So when you have a desire for something, let's say you want to have more money, and so as you think about more money, uh, that connection there will begin to rendezvous you with persons, places, things that will bring that about. So as long as you're able to minimize your subconscious belief. So if you have a subconscious belief pattern that says, I don't deserve more money, well, then it's going to put resistance into the field and keep you from getting that, even though consciously you're saying, I want more money, I want more money, that kind of thing. Does that make sense to you?
No doubt. So basically, if I was to bring, I'm able to create this reality through the brain state and the meditative process. However, because of my, like Bob Parker was saying, because of my paradigm, well, I don't believe that I deserve it or anything like that. Like even if the opportunities come my way, which they will because I'm manifesting it, I'll do something to self-sabotage that.
That's
Basically,
exactly right. Yep, that's exactly right.
gotcha.
So by having this ratio here indicates that your brain is capable of creating that for you.
Okay.
So the only unknown factor is, what are your subconscious belief patterns? And if a person wants to know that, all they have to do is look at their behavior. Our
Yeah.
behavior is based upon our subconscious belief. So if you do things that you don't want to be doing and you keep doing them over and over, you probably have a subconscious belief pattern that's driving that.
Hmm.
And so by cleaning up that vibration, I just gave a lecture about all of this on Saturday at Quantum University. Uh, so for about 2 hours, it's available online.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Where at? What's the site? Is it on YouTube or is it on your site?
No, it's not on my site. It's at Quantum University. Yeah, I know you're on Facebook a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
put a post up there on Sunday that had the link to that.
All right, I'm gonna go get it as soon as this is over. You
Yeah, if
put
you
it in.
don't, shoot me an email and I'll send you the link.
All right. Cool.
Then we already looked at your neuroplasticity, so we know that yours is healthy and good, and you'll be
Mm-hmm.
producing new neural pathways well into old age.
Except for that one little gap, right?
Yeah, except for that one little gap.
And what is it exactly as a neural pathway?
The neural pathway is where we have a pathway that is making a connection, and where they come together, there is called a synaptic gap, and the
Mm-hmm.
synaptic gap is gets filled with a neurotransmitter. So neurotransmitters are produced in your brain in order to either fire off the neural pathway or keep it from firing. So let me back up here and I'll give you an example here. So you have um, this stuff here. So this blue stuff, it's not firing in that region. So it should be firing, but it isn't. You've got amplitudes which are very high in that region. So the red here is giving you the amplitudes, but when it gets to the neural pathway itself, then it's not firing. It's preventing it from firing, and it should be firing.
And what does that affect? The fact that it
That's the
doesn't
area
fire.
of being able to stay on task,
Gotcha.
stay focused.
Okay.
So
Is that also the
you can
memory
train your
area?
brain. You can train your brain to make some of those changes, and I'm going to show you how to do that at the end of this.
Okay. Is that also the memory area?
Uh huh.
Okay. Gotcha. All right.
So we look at this other ratio here, your delta theta ratio, and this deals with intrusive thoughts and mind chatter, stuff like that. And that's what's going on here, just in the eyes closed condition. And then as soon as you get into that whole brain state, you see, it
Mm-hmm.
goes to a perfectly normal range. So you're able to filter out all of that garbage.
Good.
Very cool, huh?
Yes, sir.
You're good.
All right. I'm actually studying actually as we speak. I was just studying this uh the tapping.
Oh yeah, uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Thought field therapy is what they call that.
The EFT, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And I was I was practicing and I've been studying for about a week now.
yeah.
So definitely
The
some
I mean, it's good to deal with things that are going on in the moment, but in
hmm
terms of creating a long-term solution, it really doesn't do that.
absolutely.
You know, it interrupts the pattern though.
hmm Right.
So, you know, some of the things that I'm going to show you will help your brain train in a more permanent manner. Okay,
Yes,
so you
sir.
can read all about these brain waves, like I mentioned before, and what happens in delta and what happens in theta, and all the way up into gamma, and the kinds of things that will help you or keep you from doing what you want to do.
hmm
Let me bring up the one of these. We have some people that we are working with, and let's see. There's two of them here. I want to play for you.
Okay.
Here's the first one.
As the former CEO of a green energy company, attorney, economist, wife, and busy mom, my to-do lists were daunting. I tend to come from a highly analytical thought process, and my mind never shuts off. A friend introduced me to Dr. Joe Dispenza's neuroscience work, and I learned that 95% of our behaviors and reactions are subconscious and not a result of our analytical thoughts at all. At a workshop, he invited Dr. Jeffrey Fannin to map our brains to see if we were balanced and using both sides for optimal performance, the analytical and the intuitive. My results were mind-blowing. Dr. Joe taught us how to meditate, while Dr. Fannin suggested during meditations I focus on the single intention of seeing a green, balanced whole brain. And for the next 29 days, I committed each morning to listening to various meditations from 13 minutes to an hour and have a single intention to see my brain as green. I averaged about 30 minutes a day and was remapped in Dr. Fannin's office. And look how much greener my brain is in various meditative states. Not only is seeing believing, but I have experienced real changes in my daily life and career ever since. I meditate most days, and I know that when I think I don't have time, that's when I especially need to meditate. It's become a new good habit. But when I do, I gain time because I'm not caught up for hours in these pro-con loops. I listen to my heart more. The answers come to my questions with far less struggle and confusion, and I catch myself before I react in old unwanted patterns. I'm happier from the inside out and much more patient. Thanks for the inexpensive and non-invasive remedy, Dr. Fannin and Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Let me play another one here. This one will kind of relate to you a little bit.
Shit, I think that one related
Hi,
to
my
me.
name is Todd Voss, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself. But just remember, I am not my story. I was raised in an alcoholic household. Both my parents were alcoholics. I experienced every abuse imaginable. At the age of 17, I moved out. I was living out of a garbage can. I joined the Army, and I was in my first war at 18. And fast forward, going through another divorce, going through the Iraq War, and then another divorce, I hit my bottom. I was diagnosed with PTSD, and the VA's response to that was to put me on all these medications. But having a doctor of pharmacy degree, I realized that that wasn't the answer. And so I went on this journey to find myself and to heal myself. And I was going on all these retreats, going to all these therapists, and not finding any relief. And I hit my true bottom when two of my friends committed suicide within a couple of weeks of each other. One was like a sister to me, and we were on this journey together to try to find recovery. And my friend Joe Logan, he said, you have to listen to Joe Dispenza, you have to go see him. And so I went to one of his workshops, and listening to him present, I just had these tears just rolling down my eyes. I knew that Joe was right, that we had to go within ourselves. I was always looking for all these external sources to make me happy or to help me heal. And at the conference, Dr. Fannin presented, and he was showing all these brain maps, and I'm very analytical, and I wanted proof that all of this works. And so I was like, I really need to meet Dr. Fannin, but thinking he lived in a different state. And then it turns out that he just lived a few miles from me. So we got together, and we did a brain map of myself, and I just felt like I was laid open bare. He knew everything about me without even meeting me. And it was great, though, because I could use that in my meditations to heal myself, to see my brain and what parts were traumatized or damaged. I could go into meditation and visualize them being healed. And then working with Dr. Fannin and doing avatar training. And what that training does is it helps me focus, and it doesn't. It gives me rewards when I'm not going into a loop-like motion. And then using the alpha theta training, teaching my body to relax and go from high beta down into theta, and not to be in that hypervigilant state that I'm really used to. Mm-hmm. And so it's just been amazing working with Dr. Joe and Dr. Fannin. both of them together helps me to synergistically heal myself. And I've been so grateful. Last February I was in such deep depression, and today I have just this zest for life because these guys have the answer. And so I encourage you to check this out. I encourage you to have the courage to go within inside yourself. And, thank you. Take care.
What'd you think of that?
Oh man, that was powerful. That's powerful. I'm so glad that this stuff, man. I was just talking about this on the mastermind the other day, actually, about how true this is, because we got up to the chapter in Think and Grow Rich, where we were talking about genii and how geniuses actually operate, and then how they operate on through basically meditation. Or he didn't call it brain state; he called it brain awareness or something like that. And I said, man, I mean, I believe that what we're doing now here, what Dr. Fannin and his team are doing now is like is basically is that's what it is. It's that, but the new version of it. I mean,
Right.
in cases, it really, really works. I believe it works.
Yeah, Greg Reed and I are going to write a new book together,
Mm.
and it's all about that mastermind stuff. Because I was talking to him about Napoleon Hill's first works when he came out with the Laws of Success in 1927,
Mhm.
and he coined that phrase mastermind, and that was based on Carl Jung's and Sigmund Freud's work, where they called it connecting with the collective unconscious.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what is happening right here with you at 1 Hertz, is making
Mhm.
that connection there.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so we're going to be taking several of the people that Napoleon Hill had interviewed, back in the day, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, John D. Rockefeller, and we'll pick some of those people and talk about how they use the mastermind approach to things.
Mhm.
And then we will take some people now that I've done brain maps on all of Greg's mastermind group, and
Mm.
we're about to do the follow-up brain maps a year after they started this journey that they've been on. And so we'll use some of those cases in showing people how their success is directly related, and we'll mix in some of the brain maps and neuroscience and the quantum energy of how to tap into that.
Wow.
The title of it is going to be Mastery: colon creating your own mental makeover.
Mm. Perfect title for that. Perfect.
So the way that you can do some of this stuff is you can take areas that you want to work on. Let's say it's this area here, whether it's the red or the blue doesn't really matter. Let me go over here and show you. This was that lady that I showed you her testimonial.
Mhm.
So what happened was for 29 days she was meditating once a day, and then uh, an average of about 38 minutes. Then at the end we mapped her again, and so she was using this power of intention process. So she used this special breathing technique of coalescing the energy within her chakras and energy field in her body, and then focusing with this um, part of her brain map, and then giving her the intention, the power of the intention, telling her brain map, giving it new instructions, telling her brain, I want the red to turn green. And that
Mm.
was as simple as that.
Simple. Mm.
And then that's where she started to create the results by giving the brain new instructions with this. So you can take elements of your brain map and do essentially the same thing. The only thing that you don't have is the full understanding of coalescing that energy. Do you know where the perineum is in the body?
No, sir.
That's down below where your the space between your glands, uh, your physical elements down there between your penis and your anus. There,
Uh-huh.
that part, that's where your perineum is.
Okay.
And if you contract that, and that's the first chakra center. And if you can, when you contract it, you begin to pull the energy from there and move it up into your body. And as you imagine that moving up in your body, then you contract your thorax or your body cavity. Just tighten up the muscles and imagine it's like sucking up liquid through a straw. That you're sucking that energy up and getting it to the top energy center in your brain. And you
Mm.
hold it there. You breathe in through your nose and then hold it for a few seconds and then let it out through your mouth. You do about 5 or 6 of those, and then at a point in her meditation, she would utilize this focused intention of focusing on her brain map, the picture in her mind, and then giving it the new instructions. I want the red to turn green.
Mm-hmm.
So in your case, you'd be able to say, I want the blue to become normal.
Mm. Okay. And normal would be thin blue lines or no lines at
No
all.
lines at all.
Okay.
So one of the things that I can do is I'm going to email you some of Dr. Joe's lectures that will help you understand some of this work, as well as a couple of meditations. And they are guided meditations, so it will direct you in how to do it. Okay.
Okay.
And
That
then
would
you
be
can
great.
keep in contact with me about if you have any questions or anything like that. And we can, hook up again, go over it if through the go to meeting here, if that works for you, and just
Awesome.
just talk about where you are and how you're utilizing that in your mastermind group or whatever.
Awesome. Awesome. I definitely want to do that. Um, I want to read up on this as much as possible, so I want to read that article. I'm going to practice the exercises. When
Yeah.
do you suggest that we connect again? In 30 days from now?
Whenever you think, if you need more instructions before that time, don't hesitate to contact me. The Joe's book is called, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and I highly recommend it. And he gives you a lot of how to. Here's how to do this, and here's why. All of that stuff, and it will make a difference for you.
Okay.
You get it at any bookstore, online, wherever. It's all over the place.
Okay. Yeah, because just that those two issues right there that I have with the paying attention and the memory, I believe, you know, they definitely causing some major not, yeah, I would say some barriers, some major barriers
Yeah.
for for me personally. Uh,
All right. Well, I've got another. I'm 5 minutes late for my next consult here, so I'm going to stop the recording now.